Hey guys, welcome to week 1 of the Artist Launchpad Program. In this video, I'm going to be going over why systems are important and as well as the overall introduction of this program and what it exactly is. So helping you get from A to B in terms of finishing your music faster and getting you into a workflow of where you can finish 5 or so track IDs every single week and ultimately move yourself closer to getting, let's say, 20 or 30 tracks ready for a showcase mix by the end of this 10-week program, and then also as well as the 12 months of group coaching that come along with this as well. But for the sake of just this module, I'm going to keep it specifically to that. A lot of the other coaching things that will come up throughout your journey with me and any of the other student advisors, that's going to be very specific because everybody's going to come into a program with different weaknesses, different strengths. So as you progress through the program, there's going to be other things that we might take a different direction in. Let's say you're lacking sound design, we might make a bit more focusing on that, or maybe it's a little bit more on mixing and mastering, vice versa. So in this video specifically, I'm going to be covering about the expectations of the music industry as well as what your expectations might be of the program itself and what I might expect of you as well. The general housekeeping is just more so the guidelines of making the most out of these programs. Any of the programs through Industry Set, we always have this, and as well as the important things to be remembering going into this program specifically. So also the overview of the program, so just making sure that you have an understanding of how this whole thing is structured out and why it works and why you have to follow this methodology to get the most results. So this is kind of like what the program looks like. This is a 10-week one-on-one coaching program, which then goes into a 12-month group coaching program. So initially it goes off as every week we jump on a call for 30 minutes, figure out your current state, your desired state, and what actions we need to do before the next call, and as well as figuring out your actual pain points, your gain points, where you need improvements specifically within your production by doing a high volume of tracks consistently and reviewing, feedbacking that together, and optimizing your time, and as well as what those bottlenecks might be that are slowing you down, so then you can start actually moving forward instead of wasting a lot of time figuring out what actually is holding you back. So eliminating those bottlenecks together. And so after the 10 weeks of doing that one-on-one, it then goes into group coaching, and that happens every week as well, except it's an hour-long group session, and that's capped out at 10 people. So there's a lot of high-value coaching going on through the entirety of this. So going through 62 weeks of group coaching plus the one-on-one coaching together. So expectations. So we have to remind ourselves why we're in this program. So it's ideally we want to become label ready, because the expectations of the music industry is that it's very hard to get your music across to most labels, most mid-tier to high-tier labels. So a lot of them are going to knock you back. So you have to come prepared with a lot of different tracks, a lot of demos. So then out of the 5 or 6 that you send, maybe one of them that they actually take. And then let's say that label signs that track, and then they might only have room in their schedule until the next year. So if you've been putting all your eggs in one basket and you've been waiting for this one particular track to come out, it might be months away, or maybe it keeps getting delayed, or maybe eventually after waiting 6 months, the label then decides they don't want it anymore, they can't have it anymore. Maybe they've overbooked the amount of tracks that can be released in that year or the next year, or maybe it's just an excuse they came up altogether because they changed their mind. And so when these things happen, you have to be ready to have a backup. You need to have other tracks ready to release, self-release. Maybe you need some unofficial remixes, maybe to drip out throughout the year as well to fill in the gaps, or maybe you need other tracks to be signing with labels as well, because as those labels are scheduling out tracks that are months and months away, or maybe even the following year, that could all just be tracks that come out a much further away time than how it is right now. So if you're waiting such a long time to get your tracks out, you have to have something that fills in those gaps for the current situation you're currently in. So ideally you want to have a high volume of tracks always ready, and that's what we're going to be doing here in this entire program, is making sure that we have a huge amount of capabilities where we can just continuously churn out tracks. And that's why we need to develop a system. And so you might ask yourself, why is it harder to do this now than as it was before? It's because oversaturation has changed the music industry. The expectations are much higher because everyone's getting really good. Everyone's churning out tons of content at a time. There's some guys who are sitting on 100 to 200 unreleased IDs at a time. And you might see in some showcase mixes where they put out 40 to 50 or so unreleased IDs in a single 30-minute mix or something. And that's your competition. You know, people have that expectation that every artist has that much tracks, especially in bass music as well. But not to say that this program is specifically to bass music, but that's just an example that, you know, there's a lot of showcase mixes that are quite popular in that genre, where people are churning out a high volume of tracks to showcase and preview. So that's what the expectation is currently. Remember why you started this journey as a producer. You need to carry this through your journey so then you don't fall short on what you're trying to achieve. So just reminding yourself as you're progressing through a program such as this that is quite highly intensive with the workload. So you have to remind yourself every time you're struggling with some part of the production in this program, or you feel a bit burnt out, you have to remind yourself why you're doing this. You have to have that growth mindset. You have to have that tenacity to push through if you're going to compete with the rest of the people in this music industry who are diehard, passionate people. The transformation that we're trying to achieve here is to master our productivity, get our time back. So I'm very passionate about this topic. It's very personal to me because it wasn't too long ago where I found out that my mum only had a year or so left to live, and I realized that I had been wasting a lot of my time in my life to things that didn't really matter, playing video games, watching TV shows for hours on end, going out and doing, you know, bad things, drinking, XYZ, you know, all these things that were just a waste of time basically, when trying to align with what my end goal was to be the most productive and impactful person I could be on the world and really leave my mark on the world. And those things were stopping me from doing that. So I realized that I had to figure out how to optimize my time, get my time back, be as productive as possible. And that's kind of like what Industry Set kind of started out from. You know, I've always been very passionate about marketing and productivity, but now I've kind of taken another step forward and kind of going a bit insane with the amount of productivity that I can get out of myself and the people that I work with in these programs. So that's my main focus here is helping you get your time back so then we can focus on creating more music instead of trying to figure out what's actually holding us back. And so understanding your bottlenecks is the next thing, because you have to actually analyze and pick it out from what's actually holding you back. You can't just keep chipping away, trying new things over and over again. Sure, that works in some degree when it comes to sound design or mixing and mastering and stuff like that, but when it comes to your bottlenecks, that's specific to your own situation. So you're not going to find the answer to that on YouTube per se. Like you might after 20, 30 videos, but it's going to be a lot more systematic when you lay it all out and continuously find ways to counteract that bottleneck. And that's what we're going to be doing in this program. So we're going to figure out what your bottlenecks are together, and we're going to discuss how we can get past that every single time it happens until a point where that reoccurring problem is no longer a problem. So we're also going to figure out our system of working, so our way of approaching tracks and finishing them in a high volume, streamlining the whole process. So you're not spending a lot of time doing any tedious things. You have your way of starting the project and already knowing how you're going to finish it as well, visualizing that from start to finish, how you're actually going to approach every little element. And that's what we're trying to do here. So let's go over the general housekeeping. That's just the very foundations of what we do in our program. So ideally, you have to execute everything in this program within the 10 weeks. The program is very intensive, but it's very rewarding as well, because what you actually implement in this program is going to be something that you can apply to the rest of your life in terms of that structure of completing tasks, those deadlines, the tenacity of pushing yourself to learn and be better. That's something I want everybody to take away from this program, is to kind of adapt to this kind of mindset of like being better, because that's what's really going to push you further in not only production but just your overall life, of trying to level up every single day and just show up every day, especially when it's something that you're so passionate about, which is obviously why you're here. So if you want to get results, you also have to obviously take actions. Like the results aren't going to happen if you just show up to the coaching calls and you're not really trying to learn about how to improve. Like if you're just doing the tasks, that's great as well, but you also need to remember to actually learn from what you're doing. Like the reason why we're doing these high intensive tasks every single week is to actually learn from it and level it up. Like you can't just depend on me to give you the advice and the feedback. You also have to remind yourself of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So the importance of the coaching calls, the reason why they work so well is the accountability, is the deadlines and the specific challenges that lead to the identification of all the production bottlenecks that are slowing you down, but in a short amount of time. So all those things combined is why I believe coaching is so much more powerful than just watching a bunch of video tutorials, because it's specific to your situation. It holds you accountable. It gives you the deadlines to push yourself forward and actually complete things faster. And then the specific challenges are what help you analyze what the bottlenecks are that are slowing you down, and helps you level up a lot faster in that way as well. So all these things together, I think that's why coaching gets you a lot of results, because it's specific to your situation plus all those things there. So also we have a community group, so you can join that and have a conversation with the other people that are in the program, and it's a great way to network with other producers that are on the same goal of growth, because you've got the accountability that people have came through the program and achieved touring artist success, and you have the accountability that there's other people in the program that have the same line of goal of growth as you. And then you also have the accountability that I've already done this 100 times and gotten people results over the last half decade. So you know that I can get people results, same as the other student advisors that I train and who coach here as well. And so if you need to get help and support during the entirety of this program, you can reach out to me at jackson@theindustryset-set.com. If you have any issues, let's talk about some important things to remember as well. So there's no magic pills here. You must do the work. If you expect to change, these lessons will last a lifetime, and at its core will enable you to impact your artist career, but also other walks of life. So pretty self-explanatory. No excuses. Your life and music career is where it's at because you have designed it this way. You are responsible for what you have right now, and you will be responsible for the results you get in this program. So literally, if you want to be better, you have to put in the time. You have to be willing to go the extra mile to actually get to this next stage, and it's going to be a lot of resistance when you're doing this program, because you're pushing yourself to do the things that are uncomfortable. It's a lot easier to do the general approach, what people do. The reason why they don't finish enough tracks is because every time they're getting close to finishing a track, they decide to make something new, because they have that resistance they don't want to push on. Because when they push against that resistance, it's uncomfortable, and they spend an hour or two of not getting any results. But once they get past that line of resistance, that's when they start getting the results. And that's when they start seeing that change in their mindset, and they're able to progress faster. And every time when they get more resistance, they're able to push past it faster as well, because they're so used of getting to that. Every time you get resistance, that's when there's change waiting for you on the other side. So that goes into my next point of embracing the change, because you are choosing to play at a higher level here. That's why you've signed up to these programs. These are high level programs designed to get people from A to B a lot faster. So obviously there's going to be some resistance from your body and mind, because you might be juggling a 9 to 5, coming home, trying to smash out this work, and then also juggling some social life and whatnot. You have to remember why you're doing this in the first place. Do the work. So if you just show up to these trainings and take notes that don't do the work, you won't get any results. You will get tempted to just consume the content, but implementing is what's going to make you successful. So going up with what I said previously about putting down, doing the work, but not reminding yourself why you're actually doing it. I think it's really important to do the work and also remind yourself that you're trying to learn from all these trainings as well. So it's more of just not just replicating what you're given, but it's also just reminding and implementing these learnings. So every time you learn something new, you implement it into the next bunch of exercises. So you keep getting better, and you keep getting faster. So how to not use this program? feeling like you know everything. Obviously, you don't come into a program like this if you think, oh, I know everything here, so there's no need for me to try and implement this. Like, I don't need to do that part of this program because I've already done it. If you don't implement every single bit of part of this program, and as well as, you know, the things that you're being coached for, there's no point of you really being here in the first place. If you want to make the most of this and maximize your career, I would go into this with as if you know nothing, and learn as much as you can from that perspective. Jumping the gun, trying to talk to people and establishing relationships before you gain your momentum. So, for example, if you started going through the music industry and started telling people about your music when you didn't even have a comprehensive sound, or you didn't even have a good stockpile of tracks, and you start trying to send your music to bigger artists when you only have like one finished song out of your entire catalog, you're going to be just shooting yourself in the foot, because people tend to make first-hand judgments of the first things you put out or first thing that you show them. So you want to make sure that when you do get to that point of your career, that it's everything that you have is the best it can possibly be. So that's why you don't want to jump the gun. You want to make sure that you've gotten the most out you can out of this program, as well as whatever other programs you might be, whether it's through Industry Set or through another platform, whatever it might be. Make sure that you're optimizing everything you can. You're learning as much as you can. You're being the best person you can, not just in music, but also in life as well. So then you can optimize your time, you can be better, you can level up, and you can move faster in the music industry, because it's a very highly demanding industry, and there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of oversaturation. So you have to be the best possible person you can be. You have to be a high performance kind of human being. If you're coming into these coaching calls and telling either myself or any of the student advisors about your origin stories and how you achieved XYZ, that's great and everything, but that's not using your time effectively. You only have minimal amount of time with myself or any of the other coaches, and you want to be as strict as possible with hearing the information you need to level up, implementing it, reviewing it, and then assessing what the next results you need to get to level up again. So you just want to keep focused on the task at hand, not wasting any time. Very, very common sense here though. So here's some things to watch out for. So don't worry about where you're currently at and where you could be. Focus on yourself. Everyone grows differently. So obviously don't be thinking about the rest of the music industry, how there's somebody that maybe you're rivals with, let's say, or like you've always wanted to be better than a certain person. The moment that you start focusing on this person, you're giving up all the energy that you could be using for yourself, and you're wasting on somebody else that doesn't even matter to your own goal of growth. So you have to put that mindset aside and focus on yourself, and also to not get down if you're not where you feel like you should be, because everybody, like, you could spend a year or two on a hiatus not doing anything related to music production, but then you come back and within 6 months you could be just as far ahead as what you originally envisioned to be. You can level up a lot faster than you think you can. It's just about sacrificing what is holding you back, figuring out your bottlenecks, and pushing yourself to that limit where you can actually be achieving those things faster. I think a lot of people, when they're trying to achieve success in whatever thing it is, whether it's business, it's personal life, it's relationships, or music, creativity, a lot of people seem to limit themselves because they don't focus enough on the task at hand, and they try to do everything at once. They try to be the best at everything at once, instead of just focusing on the one particular thing and then just trying to be the best at that, and then figuring out what's holding you back and then pushing forward from there. Also, don't overanalyze or wait for the right time. So no more waiting on things that happen for you. So this is something that it's like part of my mantra, is to always be pushing forward, trying to see how you can leverage things to move your career forward. You'll be surprised to hear how much you can do by yourself, and the way the music industry is now, and also with social media, you have every opportunity to create your own career from literally nothing, as long as you have the tenacity and will to create content on a high level, like a high volume of content, like any content creator does. You know, guys like on YouTube, for example, they're busting out tons of content every single day. Sometimes they're posting a whole 20-minute YouTube video every day. Like that's the kind of content creation that is expected of a music producer now. It's not just obviously the music production as a whole. It's also just, content creation with like, TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, all that kind of stuff is expected of you as well. And so if you can master this format of batching that we do in this program, you'll be able to do that and apply it to other parts of your life, such as like the social media game as well, that is expected of you as well. So focusing on the content, so content, coaching, and community should be your focus, and implementing your system. So pretty self-explanatory. Focus on what we're telling you to focus on, and that's it. So expectations of the music industry: you must have a large stockpile of unreleased music. High volume is the only way. You must have a strong understanding of structure. Making tracks that are playable by other DJs is important, which is why we're making structure a big focus in this program. You must be able to execute decent sound design. Understanding this gives you leverage over others who don't. So not absolutely essential to be a complete master of sound design, but it does give you leverage of being able to create sounds from scratch. I know a lot of artists who make an entire career out of just literally repurposing samples and whatnot, and just reusing them in an entire track, and just processing them really well. But sound design, still very important, but not the most important thing. You must understand motives, call and response, memorable music, follow the important musical devices. So we'll be going in a lot about how to actually structure tracks to make them memorable and listenable as well, and also enjoyable. Like, you need to have motives and call and response, so then it actually is something that somebody can recognize as something that they can possibly dance to, and as well as just listen to. You must be able to create and release music consistently in a timely manner. Speed is everything. So obviously that's a huge factor of this program, is being able to optimize your time and get that time management back, and get you to into a workflow of busting out a ton of music every single week. And that's why coaching is so important, to keep you accountable for that. And also, you must have a unique sound. So developing this is what will have a focus in the program. This is something that will just happen over time as we're deconstructing other people's tracks and trying to recreate them at a high volume, and then also transitioning into creating our own originals in a high volume amount. That's where we're going to be able to start seeing you progress the things that you've learned over the first half of the program of recreating things, and then putting them into a new perspective of using it as an original idea as well. So here's some of the main topics that I'll be covering in the video content, as well as the coaching as well. So removing and reorganizing. So for example, just like decluttering everything, not only in your computer and your production, your DAW, but this also applies to your life as well. You want to be reorganizing and removing things that you don't need. The minimal perspective on optimizing your time is the best way to do it. Let's say, for example, with your sample pack library, if you've got tons and tons of packs that you've bought off Splice that you've never even opened, it's time to move those to another folder, get them away from, or I would just personally delete them and start all over again. It's much easier than trying to go through every single folder that you already have and then trying to find the sweet ones, the sweet samples. So best form of practice would to go through and just delete what you don't need, not only for your samples, but also like your racks, your plugins. Delete all those plugins you've never even opened and you don't even know how they use, but you only bought them because you thought that it would help your production because everyone else uses it. Either learn it and use it, or don't use it. So there's no point in it just sitting there collecting dust in your computer, metaphorically. So with your structure as well, and for bottlenecks, what you want to be doing is analyzing what the problems are that are holding you back. That's something that myself or any of the student advisors will be helping you with. Structure, that's going to be something that you will understand very quickly once we do all these exercises by recreating what specific parts of another track at a high volume. Musical devices are things such as like call and response, motives, optimizing time and workflow. That's something that obviously I've already talked a lot about that of why it's important. And mixing and mastering, I'll be also covering a lot of the fundamentals and quick ways of mixing your tracks, so then you have a system in place and you're not spending so much time wondering if the sound or track is the best it can possibly be. So let's talk about the core system of this program. So we're going to be developing a system that works for you. We're going to be creating a music creation strategy that gets us stockpiling 5 ideas every week, meanwhile eliminating our bottlenecks, improving our mix masters, sound design, and more. So overall, this system that we're going to be following that gets us finishing ideas every week is more of a scientific approach to streamlining your entire productivity. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I've been seeing some insane success coming through students who have completed the entirety of the 10 weeks, and now we're into the 12 months segment of the program, where they're now just continuously busting out full tracks every single week, and then we're reviewing them together over the calls. So eliminating bottlenecks, we're going to be analyzing what's holding our production back every week, and then coming up with solutions to get rid of them, which I've already talked about a lot, and as well as build out our music catalog. So by the end of the 10 weeks, you should have at least 20 work in progress tracks to turn into full tracks, and by which you can even use for a showcase mix. Because if you have, let's say, 15 drop ideas from this program, and you have, let's say 10 build-up ideas or 5 build-up ideas, you can easily segment all of that together and put it into a showcase mix, because most showcase mixes are just build-ups and drops, right? So if you're just like stockpiling tons and tons of these track work in progresses that you create from this program that I'll show you how to make in a high volume, that's going to be very useful for launching your brand. If you launch your brand with a showcase mix and you market it in the right way, you can have a lot of hype, a lot of eyeballs on you, because hype isn't how good you are, it's how good people think you are at a short amount of time. And so if you come out with a bang with a high volume of tracks, and they're all really good, and they're all structurally good, and they're even structurally good enough for some high tier artists to play out, then a lot of eyeballs are going to be on you and your brand from that moment forward. So why copying professional tracks works? So the reason why we're doing this is that re-engineering a professional track that obviously has already done wonders in the music industry, if you're making a track that, if you're copying it word for word, and you're learning why that works within that structural points and how that sound design gets put together, you're learning more about how to make a professional track than you ever could any other way. It's the most productive way of leveling up, just figuring out what your sound actually is by referencing a bunch of other artists, trying to recreate their tracks to see how it's been put together, like word for word, and then based off of that we can analyze what the difference is between yours and the original. And so we can see what's missing within your production, what the bottlenecks are, and then once we establish what the bottlenecks are, we can figure out how we eliminate them. And once they're eliminated, then when you transition over to creating your own tracks for original tracks, there'll be nothing holding you back. You'll be able to finish these tracks with ease because you don't have any bottlenecks that are slowing you down. Often what happens is people, they try to build out their production catalog, and they finish a track in its entirety, but they never look back, they never take a step back and think about the specific parts of their production. They never think about, well, I always struggle trying to finish a build-up, but I never spend time just trying to get better at build-ups. They just keep trying to finish overall tracks, and then they get to a certain point which they know that they struggle with, but they don't know specifically why, and so they just dance around the problem, or instead of finishing that particular part of the track, they just realize, oh, well, it'll be a quicker, easier dopamine fix if I go back and just create a new track rather than finishing this one. And so they do this subconsciously, and that's why they never finish enough music. And so that's what we're doing here with the accountability, with the deadlines, with the specific challenges that I outlook with students, set out with students, and the same with the student advisors. These things combined is what is really helping push somebody to the next level. Having somebody to keep you accountable and helping them identify the problems that they didn't realize. Because often when you're listening to your own music, you don't notice a lot of the negatives in it because you made the song. And that's why feedback's really important as well, because it helps you identify things that you didn't even know were there in the first place. So this is an example of, let's say the first week, I set out with somebody and I tell them to make 5 intros of 5 different artists that influence their sound. So let's say it's 1 Sudden Death track, 1 Subtronics track, 1 Rez track, 1 Dead Mouse track, 1 Steve Angelo track or something, right? So any genres, whatever. And so then from there, they try and recreate that track from its entirety of just making the best best intro possible. Maybe it's the best build up possible. And they come back to me with those their rendition of that track, like their best version of that, right? Trying to make it word for word copy. And then from there, we just literally get real specific about what the pain points were, what they were lacking, what the gain points were, what they did good on, because it's important to come back and reflect on what was working and how they're improving every single time. Because once you go through 10 weeks, you want to look back and say, wow, I'm getting better so much faster. Look at all the problems I used to have, and look how much better I am now, and how I don't have these problems. And once we figure out the gain points, pain points of each track in that session, you can start to see reoccurring problems. So let's say, for example, if it was low mids we're lacking in every single track, obviously that is a bottleneck. Or maybe it was there was transients lacking on their drums, so obviously that's a bottleneck. So then we then discuss. We come over to our sheets on the right here that you can see. We figure out what helped us move forward, what were the things that we got better with, and then we discuss what were the things that held us back. Maybe it was the lack of a certain plugin, or maybe they needed a certain rack, or maybe their template needed to be better so they didn't waste so much time trying to set certain things up. And then we also talk about how we could have done things differently. So obviously it might have been something to do with like referencing better, or maybe they needed to have that particular plugin, or maybe it was to do with optimizing their time better with something else with their production, or maybe their sample selection. And then what should we do next? So what can they do to for the next bunch of the next week? Like how can we level this up in the next week? So that's the core system of what we're doing. But obviously every week it changes. There's different challenges, different things, because it's very specific to a certain person's skill set. Everybody comes into a program with different skill sets, different weaknesses, different strengths. So we have to identify what those weaknesses are, what those strengths are, and then create a program that's custom built around that. And so that's how we're getting people from A to B really fast within 10 weeks, plus, of course, the 12 months that happen after this program as well in the group coaching. That is just more so a system in place. So then our students are continuously leveling up, and they're continuously getting accountable of their own work and challenging themselves to be better, and also networking with other like-minded people to push themselves further. Because if you have that sense of accountability of being surrounded by other people who are also pushing themselves, it's going to push you harder as well. So in your first week, the first week is to obviously pick those 5 artists that inspire your sound. Don't make it too difficult for yourself. Obviously, don't be picking something like, Noisier, for example, for the first week. Maybe do that later. But you want to try and, based off your skill level, try and pick something that aligns somewhat with that. So you think that you actually could replicate that, because we want to more so just get the ball rolling with the workflow. We want you to get into a habit of actually making these 5 tracks every week. And so the best way to do that is pick something that's realistic. And so that's what we're doing here. We want to create, let's say, one build-up of each of these artists. So that will be this first week. We're going to create one build-up of 5 artist tracks. So one build-up of this, one build-up of that, one build-up of that. So we want to make it the best build-up possible. So come with the 5 build-ups into the first session, and from there we're going to figure out what the bottlenecks are, and then we'll start to streamline your entire workflow process. So I want you to upload 5 of those all 5 clips to a private SoundCloud with the references attached in that private SoundCloud playlist. So then I can reference between the two interchangeably and see what's actually missing from your version versus theirs. And that's going to give us a good solid foundation of what your current state is, and what our desired state is, and what we need to do to get there. So that was the overview of this program for the Artist Launchpad program. For those who are wanting to level up your production output as well, the entirety of getting a system in place, so then you can start and finish tracks really fast. That's what we're all about with this program. That being said, make sure that you finish in its entirety those 5 exercises that I've put out for you to finish before our first coaching call. Make sure that you get those into a privatized SoundCloud link playlist with the 5 references, and then come with that ready for the Zoom call, the very first coaching call.